Hello everyone, welcome back to Buddha's teachings. Today, we will discuss a very meaningful topic related to our daily lives. Does money truly bring happiness? This is not just a question that many people often ask, but also a profound lesson in Buddhist philosophy about impermanence and the true value of happiness. If you enjoy content about Buddhist teachings and deep philosophical lessons, please like the video, share it with more people, and don't forget to follow the channel so you don't miss upcoming videos. Thank you for your support, and now let's begin. Don't let the obsession with money consume you. Once upon a time in a small village, there lived a shoemaker named Anan, renowned far and wide for his exceptional shoemaking talent. He worked tirelessly, day and night, fixated on earning money and expanding his shop. Through hard work, Anan gradually became the richest man in the village, owning immense wealth in gold, silver, and land. However, no matter how much money he had, Anan always felt uneasy. He never felt satisfied, and he feared losing what he had accumulated. Each night, he worried that his wealth might be stolen or that customers would stop coming to buy his shoes. One day, when the Buddha passed through the village, Anan heard the news and decided to seek his counsel. When he stood before the Buddha, he shared that despite his wealth, he still felt unhappy and was constantly anxious about making more. The Buddha quietly looked at Anan and asked, "If a person holds their hands full of sand and goes around searching for more sand, can they hold any more in their hands?" Anan replied, "No, Master, they cannot. Their hands are already full of sand." The Buddha continued, "Similarly, your mind is too filled with worries and obsessions about money. You strive to hold on to and accumulate more, but your mind has no room for peace and happiness." He paused for a moment and asked, "If you let go of some sand, will your hands have space? And when you open your heart, what will come to you?" Anan answered, "I will have room to receive new and more valuable things." The Buddha nodded and advised, "You have allowed money to consume your thoughts, but money cannot bring the peace you seek. Learn to let go of your worries about wealth and understand that true richness lies in a tranquil heart. When you learn to pause and feel enough, life will become lighter, and happiness will naturally follow." After hearing this, Anan realized that for many years, he had been obsessed with making money and accumulating wealth. He bowed his head in gratitude to the Buddha and decided to change his way of life, letting go of his anxieties about possessions and seeking true happiness from within. Can money buy happiness? In today's world, one of the widely discussed questions is, can money buy happiness? From a practical perspective, some people believe that money can bring comfort, convenience, and even social status. However, from a Buddhist viewpoint, this question requires deeper analysis, not only from a material standpoint, but also from a spiritual and intellectual perspective. Money, in itself, is a powerful force that influences this world. When misused, it can lead to suffering and engulf your entire life in pain. Yet, when money is used appropriately, it can provide comfort. If you use money wisely, you can indeed buy happiness for yourself. So, what should we do with money? Remember that many people use money for malevolent purposes. The ultimate outcome of such actions is suffering, which is well known. There are also those who spend money on luxurious items, expensive clothes, and extravagant apartments, believing these purchases equate to happiness. But no, that is not happiness. That is merely a sense of comfort. According to the teachings of the Buddha, money itself is not inherently bad, but the way people use and perceive it is the core issue. Money can provide us with material conditions that help us live comfortably, but that does not mean it can bring true and lasting happiness. The impermanence of money and material wealth. Buddhism, in all aspects of its teachings, constantly reminds us of the impermanent nature of the world, anicca. Money and material wealth, while seemingly providing stability and comfort, are not exempt from this law. We may temporarily possess money, feeling joy when spending or enjoying the conveniences it brings. However, that joy is fleeting. It is merely a brief pleasure, sukha, not true happiness. Buddhism makes a clear distinction between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure relates to transient satisfaction, those fleeting moments we feel when fulfilling our desires. But as those things fade away, as wealth diminishes, we return to feelings of emptiness and dissatisfaction, often seeking more to fill that void. This embodies the nature of suffering, dukkha, that the Buddha identified in the Four Noble Truths. Suffering arises when we cling to external conditions, when we place our happiness in impermanent things. When we lose them, we suffer. When we cannot attain them, we also suffer. The true happiness that the Buddha teaches does not come from external sources. It is not the result of temporary things like money, fame, or power, but lies in the liberation of the mind and understanding the true nature of life. When we let go of cravings, accept impermanence, and realize that everything is in a state of flux, we no longer cling, worry, or suffer. Ultimately, true happiness, nirvana, is the tranquility and peace of the soul. It is liberation from all attachments, all illusions that money and material wealth can bring permanence. The Buddha taught that only when we learn to live in the present, without clinging to the past, without dreaming of the future, and without being swept away by material desires, can we truly find inner peace and authentic happiness. The difference between satisfaction and happiness. In everyday life, many people often mistake material satisfaction for happiness. When we possess money, we easily feel content when we can purchase lavish items such as spacious homes, gourmet food, and luxury clothing. However, Buddhism teaches that these things only provide temporary satisfaction, and that feeling quickly fades once the fleeting pleasures are gone. The mind then falls back into a state of dissatisfaction and continues to crave more, trapping us in an endless cycle of desire. The Buddha made it clear in his teachings that temporary satisfaction, sukha, and true happiness, nirvana, are two entirely different concepts. When we become caught up in seeking and accumulating material possessions, we can easily become attached to fleeting and unstable emotions. While material comforts may bring us transient joy, they are impermanent. When they disappear, we feel empty and unfulfilled. This dissatisfaction is the root of suffering, dukkha, a truth that the Buddha taught in the Four Noble Truths. Buddhism guides us to seek happiness not from external sources, but from inner liberation, from letting go of cravings and attachments. True happiness, according to Buddhism, does not lie in achieving or possessing, but in the tranquility of the soul, in relinquishing all desires and disturbances. It is the state of inner peace, upekkha, a balance and serenity in the face of life's ups and downs. We often seek happiness through accumulation, yet the more we have, the more we worry about loss. This creates instability in the mind, causing us to endlessly chase after external things without ever feeling enough. The Buddha taught that only by letting go of craving and not clinging to what is impermanent can we achieve true tranquility. The lessons from Buddhism encourage us to live simply, to be content with what we have, and, most importantly, not to let ourselves be driven by relentless desires. When we can abandon material cravings and live in mindfulness, our souls will become lighter and purer. Happiness, then, is not a fleeting emotion, but a lasting and enduring state that comes from freedom from the bonds of the material world. Ultimately, the difference between satisfaction and happiness lies in the fact that satisfaction is a temporary feeling based on external things, while happiness is an inner state that transcends all desires and attachments. The Buddha has shown us this path through the Noble Eightfold Path, the way to enlightenment and liberation from suffering. Remember that the purity and tranquility of the soul are the ultimate goals of this journey, and only then can we truly attain authentic happiness. Using money wisely. The path to true happiness. Buddhism does not advise us to completely shun or abandon money or material possessions, but rather guides us on how to use them wisely and meaningfully. Money itself is not the source of suffering. Rather, it is our attachment to it and insatiable greed that are the roots of the suffering humans face. The mundane life often leads us to think that the more wealth we have, the happier we will be. But Buddhism reminds us that seeking happiness through material accumulation is an illusion. Money is merely a tool, an intermediary in life. What truly matters is how we use it, as our way of spending money determines whether it leads us to joy or suffering. When we use money rightly, to help others, support those in need, or contribute to charitable causes, money becomes a means to bring joy and benefits not just to the recipients, but also to the givers. Buddhism refers to this as the creation of merit, punna, a spiritual accumulation rather than a material one, guiding us toward true happiness. A notable story from the scriptures about the great benefactor Anathapindika exemplifies how to use money to benefit oneself and others. Anathapindika, a wealthy man, did not spend his riches solely for personal enjoyment. Instead, he used a large part of his wealth to help the poor and to build facilities for offering to the Buddha and the monastic community. This generous and compassionate act not only improved the lives of many, but also brought him profound inner peace and happiness. Anathapindika's wealth was not measured solely by material possessions, but more importantly, by the blessings he accumulated through compassion and generosity. Buddhism emphasizes that when we let go of greed and do not allow ourselves to be enslaved by endless desires, money can become a tool for creating goodness. When we use money wisely and compassionately, we not only help alleviate suffering in the world, but also plant seeds of peace for ourselves. At this point, money is no longer a source of anxiety, fear, or pain. It becomes a means to achieve higher spiritual values. The Buddha taught that giving with a compassionate heart, without expecting anything in return, is one of the noblest acts. Generosity is not just about sharing material goods. It also helps us let go of our attachment to possessions, purifying our souls and building merit. When we give sincerely, without greed or expectation, we free ourselves from the chains of craving and attain lasting happiness. However, using money wisely is not just about giving. It also involves living a simple, sufficient life. Buddhism encourages us to live with moderation, to be content with what we have, and not to chase endless desires. True satisfaction comes from knowing enough, and when we are no longer driven by unending wants, our minds become tranquil and liberated from troubles. Ultimately, the message Buddhism conveys about money and material wealth is one of mindfulness. We should not be caught in the vortex of excessive accumulation and consumption, but instead be mindful of how to use money meaningfully, allowing it to become a tool that brings us closer to true happiness and peace. This requires us to maintain a clear mind, free from delusion caused by worldly desires, and to live with compassion and wisdom. When we recognize the impermanence of money and material possessions, we will know how to use them correctly, and through this, we can find peace for ourselves while also creating joy and happiness for those around us. Generosity, compassion, and wise use of money are the paths to true happiness that Buddhism has shown us through invaluable lessons from the scriptures. So, do not misunderstand that money cannot buy happiness or that it can. Money can bring happiness, but only when used wisely. Use money correctly and find happiness in your life. When we understand that happiness is not something that can be bought with material possessions, but is the purity and tranquility of the soul, we will no longer be obsessed with money. Instead, we will use it as a tool to cultivate wisdom and compassion, thus achieving true and lasting happiness. I hope that through these reflections on the proper use of money and the value of true happiness in Buddhism, you will find meaningful lessons to apply in your life. May you always find inner peace and tranquility, steadfast on the path to enlightenment. Don't forget to continue following and supporting the Buddha's Teachings channel to explore more profound philosophical lessons together. Namo Buddhaya.